Good evening, everybody. Special meeting on March 10th, 2022, 501 Main Street, 6 p.m. First item, call to order. Second item, roll call.
Crenshaw,
Here.
Altai,
Here.
Garcia.
Here.
Nguyen. Here. Hellenthal.
Here.
Andrews.
Here.
Marsden.
Here.
Bryant.
Here.
Greenwald.
Here.
All present.
Item number 3, discuss fiscal year 2022, 2023 proposed budget. Okay, guys, whatever you have to say. I asked that earlier. They said it didn't have to be for a special meeting, but if you guys would like to, we can. Okay, here we go.
Okay, staff, council members called the meeting. The only thing staff was really told about is that you wanted to talk about some of the purchases that we've been making. So we're at council's discretion. Everybody's here.
We I think any major purchase is what I was concerned about. I'm not, the people, the citizens of Keokuk don't understand. We're buying equipment and not fixing streets. And you hear it all the time. Now, I realize that a piece of equipment from the sewer department is such as a jet machine. That money, if we didn't buy the piece of equipment, couldn't go to the street department or to repair streets. I realize that. But there's got to be something that can be done. I know you talked about a bond for $1 million, but that's, if that was bonded, when would we actually get that money to do that work?
The current $1 million bond that we took out last year to pay for the current fiscal years and the proposed budget's fiscal year general fund capital projects would come off the rolls in fiscal year 24. So we could bond for it July 1, 2024.
So are you saying we're not going to do any more work on any streets, major work on any streets for 24?
What we will do is, there won't be a major project. What it is we'll continue on with the seal coating and maintenance and repair that we've been doing the last couple of years.
So there isn't any other way to get money to fix the street except a bond. If there's money at the end of the year, what happens to that? If there's money left over at the end of the year, what happens to that?
In the general fund, it goes into the bank and it increases the bottom, the balance, ending balance, so that we have money in the bank.
So that couldn't be put towards streets?
Yes.
So my thing is, we need to come up with buying equipment, and some of the equipment we can get. I say don't buy any equipment and keep what we got going. We get into the problem. Whoever's got the problem comes and sees us, and then we take care of it then. A jet machine, like I say, I know it's in the sewer department, but it's a $500,000 piece of equipment, and people don't understand why you're buying that and not fixing my streets.
Well, the answer back to them is the same answer that I've been giving for 26 years, is that the sewer funds cannot pay for streets. We still have to operate the sewer department. We still have to do the things in the sewer department to do the preventative maintenance, so that we don't get sewer backups that are DNR and EPA, DNR and EPA want us to
Talk about
clear those.
equipment in other departments, trucks, garbage truck.
Well, again, sanitation, we can't use that money.
Okay. What about any equipment that's bought for street department?
Yes, and the piece of equipment that we have in there for next year's budget is the street sweeper. And the street sweeper is how old? 10 years. And we spent some money a few years back in order to refurbish it. Street sweepers take a lot of punishment.
And back to repairing the streets with $1 million bond, we can fix 7 blocks of street doing it at $150,000 a block.
If we do a full reconstruction. However, if we do mill and fill, we can get about,
8 blocks.
well, no, we can get 13, 14.
And so does anybody know how many blocks of bad streets there are in this city?
Well,
Well, yeah, but we don't want to fix the ones that's not. We want to fix the ones that are bad.
Well, Councilmember, I can tell you this, is it was suggested to me, why don't we bond $5 million and get a lot of streets done?
Mhm.
Well, if you take 13 times 5, right? $1 million gets you 13 streets, right? That's 65 streets. What happens then is we have to raise property taxes in order to pay that $5 million. Now, next year we could bond for another $5 million, but we're going to raise property taxes again. Property taxes are already going up because of employee benefits and because our property valuations are stagnant. So you, the council, can tell the staff, hey, we want to bond for $5 million every year, so long as you're willing to explain to the citizens why their taxes are going up, not by 40 cents, but maybe $1.40 every year.
On 1,000.
On per thousand, yeah.
We don't know what county's gonna do with the raises they've got.
Counties, counties raise for this year was 6 cents per thousand. So,
So if you say, if you bonded for 5 million, but you don't, the taxes are to go up 40, what did you say?
well, I can't tell you what it is. What I'm telling you is our taxes, the levy rate went up 40 cents this year,
Mhm.
just to pay for employee benefits. Because we only had a 0.4% increase in our property valuations.
And that's all city employee benefits.
Well, that's employee benefits for any employee paid out of the general fund, and half of the employee benefits for employees out of the road use tax fund.
Based on the assessor's office, the property evaluation should be going up. At least in the next couple of years, they're going to be going up based on what they've been selling for across the state. But to go off of what Councilmember Andrews said, I think the issue is with all of the problems with the budget. I know the streets are a mess. People are wondering why we're spending stuff on capital if we don't actually know where we are solidly. And I'm saying that is what the concern is. That is why people are coming forward. Last month, we're going to have to get rid of people. This month, we're going to spend $400,000 on capital projects.
Well, first off, for this year, for the current year's budget and next year's budget, we borrowed money to buy those capital purchases. So we can't use that money for anything other than those capital purchases, because that's what we said we were going to use it for. By law, we can't now just decide we're going to shift that to streets. Okay? What I'm going to tell you is that, yes, it looks like we're not spending money or don't want to spend money on streets when we're buying this equipment. But this equipment is necessary in order to complete the other operations that are going on in the city.
What's that?
Other operations, so such
So this
as,
equipment is,
so let's say, so one of the things on the list here is a mower or a tractor that is in the Parks or Cemetery Department. Okay? What I can tell you is that the reason why we're saying, hey, we need to buy these now is because first, They bought all five
All five tractors.
all
was
five
bought-
tractors in 2013, right? So now what it is we know what the expected lifetime of these pieces of equipment are
What's
based upon industry standard and based upon our experience.
What is that? On the-
Well, on a tractor or mower, you're looking 5 to 7 years.
And if we go off hours, that's the best way to go off of it in our case. So the typical lifespan, the end of its lifespan is 3,200 to 3,500 hours. We have 5 tractors. We are looking at not purchasing tractors to replace each one of these. We're going to cheaper zero-turn mowers that we feel will still be able to keep up with the mowing and actually be a little bit more efficient at about half the cost of what these tractors are. But when they're all bought in the same year, you end up with all of them reaching their lifespan within a couple of years. So our mowers right now go anywhere from 2433 is the most hours on any one of the 5 down to 1,053. You have to take in consideration, if we was to buy this tractor, we won't purchase this tractor until 2024, January or February of 2024. So that one that has 2,400 hours on it, most likely will be around 3,000 to 3,100 hours. We have discussed with the company that we have traditionally bought from because they've been the lowest price. They've talked, we've explained to them the condition of our tractors, and they're saying that we could probably get $8,000 to $10,000 trade-in on that tractor. So we took a $34,000 tractor and took it down to 24 to 26,000. Our goal is, and we've cut things out of the budget. When people ask, well, how come we're spending money? You know, this year when we just went through our budget thing a couple months ago, we've removed several large ticket items out of that budget to try to cut the cost. But when you have all your equipment that's going to come due within a couple years, at some point we're going to have to stagger it out. And we can kick the can as far as we want, but you're going to take one problem and maybe help out on the streets, but you're still going to have these other problems. You're still going to have to replace this stuff at some point in time.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
You know,
But you're saying when you're doing this, you're replacing all the tractors at the same time? Is it-
No, sir. That's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to, as these hours, like this one here is getting up close to by the time we go to get rid of it,
Mhm.
or by the time we'd want to replace it,
Mhm.
it's going to be close to the end of its lifespan. And so instead of just replacing them all at one time, as they
It's
get.
lifespan or it's.
Well, what it is at a certain,
Lifespan.
well, okay, but at
The
a certain
useful-
point, we know that the maintenance issues start to increase. The maintenance costs start to increase beyond the value of the machine. Could it go another 15,000 hours? Yes, it could, right? But what it is
And the value of the tractor.
the value of the tractor goes down. And what we're also trying to do is we're trying to maintain operations in an efficient and effective manner. If all we do is with equipment is budget for the here and now, we're going to run into a problem. And I think so I think the situation that we're in now has been created by either by stopping looking forward or not looking forward to future years and how to address these issues before they become issues. And so what we're trying to do is we're just trying to plan ahead so that we can, okay.
But we're in this current situation by overspending on capital projects.
But no, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that, and it's not just capital projects. It's in the past, we have budgeted for this next year. Budgeted for this next year, budgeted for this next year.
No,
Instead of
I
looking,
understand that. I just mean we came upon this problem quicker because we assumed we had more money and we spent more than we had.
But we went
but
back.
it wasn't capital projects. We spent more money than what we had on operations.
We also went
I-
through the budget
I
and
disagree.
we cut large ticket items out of that budget this year,
But what
but
you're saying-
items that were budgeted in the
Oh,
CIP.
I'm not attacking your department. I'm just saying, I disagree that we've spent it on operations and not on capital projects. There's plenty of departments that will tell you that they got things they never thought they would ever get.
But at the same time, I can tell you right now that if we cut every capital project out of this, that we could not then get rid of the franchise fee because we would not have enough money for operations. Operations has the expenses on operations has outstripped our ability to pay.
I just want to make sure that we're spending correctly so that if we get new machinery, we have employees to operate them.
Agreed.
What was that? Say that again.
I want to make sure we can pay the employees to operate these new machines. You know, we can have as
And
many.
we don't disagree with you, but we also want to have equipment that they can operate so they can do their job.
I'd like to jump in here for just a quick minute.
No, you're fine.
I'm not the oldest one on the council.
Hey,
Second,
hey, watch.
as far as seated, I think
Oh.
I'm second oldest. When I got on the council, we didn't have a city administrator. We had a guy that did our bookkeeping, and the other department heads can testify to this. At the time I got on, we bought all the mowers in one block. All the cop cars were bought pretty much in one block. We bought 2 fire trucks, if I'm correct, the same year. It wasn't done and it wasn't looked ahead like we're doing today. So we're now having to pay the piper for what was done years ago. Not that anybody's at blame. They saw things and did things different than the way we're trying to do it today. Today, like Robert's saying, we're trying to spread them out. When I first got on the council and I was on the subcommittee with Dave, that was something that was discussed. We're going to try to space these cars out so we're not buying 6 cars at one time. So it's a painful process, but we do have to keep up with it, or we go back to the way it was where you just buy a whole department at a time and try to figure out how you're going to pay for it. I'm just saying this for history, so everybody knows why and how we got to where we're at right now. And
I understand.
it's a tough pill.
I understand staggering. I think, like I said, Councilman Andrews and myself are fielding people who are saying last month, and Councilman Nguyen, last month you were talking about cutting people. This month you're talking about something different. So that is where the problem lies. I understand that we have to stagger purchases, but you know, the people in our community are driving their cars till the wheels fall off. They're not buying it before foreseen issues. And I understand why we should stagger it. I do, I get it.
And it's
But
another
I
thing.
have, but I have 2 comments back to that, Councilmember, in that one, we borrowed money for these things. It's not like we were taking money away from operations. We bonded money. In fiscal year 23, 24, we're going to have to figure out how we're going to pay for any capital projects in the general fund, which we haven't done yet. Okay. And second, I can tell you that depending upon the piece of equipment, some of it we do run until the wheels fall off. I mean, I think each of the department heads over there can tell you that they have pickups from early 2000s or 1990s. So it depends upon the piece of equipment and how vital it is as to when we schedule the purchase.
Yeah, I understand. The meeting, I think, is for knowledge. So that's why we're saying why right now. I think you had something to say.
Well, I understand the situation because just like the questions that I've got from the citizens are like the same reasons. Why can we spend this kind of money when we're not fixing streets and not saying anything? And it's like, okay, I've got money in my left pocket, but I don't have any money in my right pocket. And citizens on the street, they don't understand the process where you can't use road use tax funds for anything other than roads, and you can't use any of the other funds for anything other than the fixing the streets. And the other thing is, you said that we bonded for some of these things, but didn't we? We bonded for employee benefits, but didn't we bond $1 million last year to make up a deficit in the budget?
No, we've never bonded for employee benefits. And the bonding that we did last year, the $1 million, is for the capital projects in the current fiscal year and in the proposed fiscal year.
I thought you just said bonded for employee.
No, 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 no. We raised our tax levy for employee benefits.
I misunderstood them.
When you, oh, go ahead. When you bonded last year, is this like a recent thing where you've had to borrow money, or have we been borrowing money for like a long time?
This was, depending upon, I can't speak to many previous years other than when I was here. My philosophy is that the only reason why I suggested the $1 million bond last year was so that we could maintain things on schedule and allow us a little bit of breathing room to try to get the operation side fixed. I think the only capital purchases that would have been ever bonded for would be like a fire truck, because those are $500,000 at a time. Otherwise, I would, as far as capital equipment, I would generally not want to bond,
Mhm.
even though if I did, it's the way it was set up this time. It's a 3-year bond. So the money that we borrowed is going to be paid off in 3 years, and none of what we bought is everything that we purchased is going to last longer than the 3 years.
Okay.
I got to make a statement. When people ask, and say, why are you spending money to buy equipment? You're not fixing the streets. You have a lot of infrastructure in the city of Keokuk that has to be maintained. No matter how bad the streets are, there's certain things that will have to be done, and they have to be kept up. And then going back, Councilperson Garcia, when you're saying we want to keep the help, we do. But I can have all the help in the world, but if I don't have the tools, we just will not have the employees, because, I completely get what you're
tools
saying.
don't you have?
Huh?
What tools don't you have?
I'm saying if we don't continue to keep the equipment where it operates, you take,
I don't think it's a question keeping the equipment where
at what cost do we continue to put money into something is what I'm trying to get at. I mean,
we want to put a lot of money to keep the parks looking good, but we can't spend any money to fix the streets. I mean, that's the problem.
I mean, Steve, we can quit mowing the grass or cut back on mowing the
That might
grass.
be a good idea.
I'm not, whatever guidance the council wants to give us, that's the direction we'll go.
Well,
I mean,
something's got to be done to fix the streets.
So when we first started doing this, separating on it, that was a line that we looked at, and I'm sure everybody does it in their household. We do it here as a council. A piece of equipment, so it depreciates and you're only going to get so much on trade-in. That's not the only line that's ever looked at. You also have to weigh in, what are we paying every year in maintenance just to keep the goofy thing running? When your maintenance gets so high that we don't care what the trade-in is, if the trade-in's high and your maintenance fees are getting high, you better get rid of it. That's just kind of the way it is. And we had that discussion when I first started with the car barn, and they actually brought us a list of what each vehicle was costing every year. And I can tell you, these two chiefs sitting here can tell you what it costs every year to keep their fire department and police department with AC and heat. It's been an ongoing battle, and they need it bad too, but they're on the back burner. So here again, there's that fine line. There again, there's that fine line between how much do you keep throwing down the drain versus you got to bite the bullet.
Wait a minute, AC and heat. Go back to that. Tell me that again. What did you say about it?
We spend a ton of money on their air conditioning and their heating to keep that building going.
Okay.
We've known it for
How much
20,
mon-
20,
How much
25
money you can
years.
spend on to keep the vehicles going and
Exactly, that's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at. We have, as a council, we have to decide, where is that line? Okay, this vehicle now is costing us more than if we bought a new one, or is it not nickel and diming us? We got a really good one. We could probably squeeze 2 or 3 more years out of it. And that's what we pay our department heads for, to bring this information to us. Then we have the fund.
I'm not questioning the department heads. I believe that all of them have a firm understanding, or I hope that they do, of where the budget is. So I trust that they would only bring forth the things that they absolutely need. My problem is if we do not monitor it very closely, in 6 months, we could be right where we were 2 months ago. You don't want to be there.
No.
I don't want to be there.
Right.
And they don't want to be there. So
And
Are we for sure that what you're proposing is worth potentially losing someone? That's all that this is about.
And something else we haven't even considered. I just today got back from Texas, and in Texas, they're paying $4 a gallon at the pump, and we're seeing that cost rise. So what's that going to do to our city budget right there? I don't even know what fund or what pocket that comes out of, but I know that we're looking at $5 a gallon gas. So with our squad cars, with our fire trucks, with our garbage trucks, any vehicle that this city has run, I think we're going to have to get real creative. Instead of maybe patrolling the streets all the time, park them in a certain spot and move them occasionally instead of driving around, because we're getting to a situation with the cost of gas that's going to just nothing but increase, and that's definitely going to affect our budget this year.
The reason I'm saying what I'm saying, and I'm not trying to put anybody down or disagree with anybody. I'm trying to put it out there so maybe the public also will understand that these are also factors that we have to factor in here too. I totally get where you guys are coming from. I do not have the exact number of when you weed this one out, when you weed that one out. And you're right, we do need to keep a tighter grip on it. And I think that's why we're here tonight, and that's why we're discussing it. But on the other hand, I don't have the time to go to each department head and make sure that they're doing their jobs. So micromanaging, here's another fine line. I mean, put a little pressure on them, have them show us more numbers. I don't know what the answer is, guys. I really don't. I totally get what you're saying. Maybe we can get a little bit more creative.
I'm not putting pressure on department heads. I'm putting pressure on ourselves.
Yeah.
I trust what they presented to us. This is for us.
agree.
Any items that I have in my budgets, if anybody, you ask me why we want it, and I'll give you an answer to the best of my ability, and I'll give you an answer on every single item that we ask for.
And that is why we had budget meetings in January. We had these huge budget meetings where we had each one stand up before us and we went over their stuff. I think it's good if we need more knowledge, we need more knowledge. If we need to switch things around on how we get more time to talk, I'm up for that. But at the same time, at those budget meetings, some of these questions didn't come up. And I guess, and when you say, I want to put more, this is about council stepping up, agreed. We need to start asking questions, but they should have been done. I mean, it should be constantly done. But when they were here presenting for multiple hours, I know we were here a long time. I was asking lots of questions. We all needed to come prepared to that. And none of these questions came up. And I do feel I'm glad we're coming to it. I'm glad you guys came out. Again, I sat with you through those general fund meetings. They were atrocious. You know what I mean? They were tough. So I do trust that we need to do it. I agree with you, this projection. But I also think we also is it not true that this is, if something was to come up, gas prices, like you were saying, these what if scenarios of it, if it was to go bad in that year, we can not purchase that item. We still have the ability to go and not do that. So even though, that's going to be a hard thing to say to a department, I'm completely agreeing. Right now I'm saying, yeah, let's do this. And then to come back if something's changed and say, hey, Tom, I'm so sorry. Something changed. And I hate that we have to do that, but it's changed. And I think that's what everybody's budget does. You take it, we're projecting. And if we take a bad hit, we make that change. We make that adjustment. We have to be able to modify and adjust, but we need to be using our meetings and our discussion time to do that. If we need to have more of those or longers of those or anything like that, I'm totally down to do that. But if this is for council knowledge to go through, maybe we needed to have a longer work session on it instead of an hour.
I don't know if that's the answer or not the answer, and I'm probably not the one that should talk, but I do know that back when I was with the city before, we were called in and we were given a certain amount of time to talk as individual departments. It wasn't all piled one after one after one, so that we didn't hear everything and you get lost in this much paperwork and everything. Your department was called in and we talked and and what you needed and what you didn't need. And we might have been in there half an hour, but it was set up and that's how you did it. And maybe that's a better way to do it, because if you bring 10 departments in and 10 departments in, that gets lost in the shuffle. We can pretend like it doesn't. And by the time the night's over, everybody's going, well, I don't even know what what we're talking about or what we're voting for. And then you go home and you have to read through it and you have another job, that type of situation. Maybe it's a situation where when you do it, you bring that one department in for 15 minutes or 20 minutes themselves and they talk and you discuss everything then, because we could ask questions, but when it was all over, there was no discussion.
And
It was all over, it was all over.
went into discussion after, since then.
So, and I don't know if that's the way to do it. I don't mean to be unkind or any way, shape, or form, and I don't think this is an attack on any of the department heads whatsoever. I don't think it's an attack on the council or anything. I just think that there's people sitting up here and people sitting out there and people sitting out in the public that are wondering why we're spending money. I think we don't even need to talk about streets anymore, because I think we all know sitting here that has nothing to do with streets. I just think that people see us spending money and they wonder why.
I personally don't have, it was no questions for department heads. I've reached out to all of the ones that I had questions for. Mine was simply so that everyone on council, so that next month it's not, oh, I didn't realize that that's what I was saying yes to. Or in a year when we have another, budget committee come together, when everyone's like, oh, I didn't realize that was going to put us here. It's for having more solid foundation of, yes, we're going to approve these things. And next year, we're not going to be talking about cutting employees of the city.
Mayor, I'd have to agree with you. I remember those meetings. I dreaded many hours we sat through them, but I do remember having one department head there and everybody got to ask. I remember asking a question why we was buying a Snap-on creeper instead of some other brand because of the price. You can drive over and crush a cheap one just like you can a Snap-on one. So it did in the very beginning when I started, and the way you're talking about, it was a lot more personal, and I think it put them on the spot a little bit worse, but yet they got to explain to us at a slower pace why they were wanting this, why they felt that they needed to have that. And that might be something to look at. I do honestly miss having that set up.
Can I ask, was it
Well,
the full council that met with them, or was it a
It
committee?
was the full council.
And so were they brought in on separate nights, or were they?
we had it on Saturday mornings for 4 or 5 Saturdays.
Half hour to go over their list. And then we did, probably half the departments, and then the other half roughly. Some departments required a little bit more time than others.
We only did 4 or 5 departments a morning and they each had half an hour. It was and I know, like you think, oh, we did it in 2 nights and you were out of your mind, and no, that way we did it in like 5 or 6 Saturdays and you were like, oh no, I got to come. But
We
it
spent,
just seemed like there was more of an understanding. That's all
we
I'm
spent
saying.
several minutes, maybe hours, talking about string trimmers for the parks.
Yes.
We spent several amount of time talking about vests for the police department. And that's a piece of equipment we shouldn't even be talking about. It's got to be bought. And somehow these police people get bigger as they go along. They got to have another one. You buy a car, you got to buy a new cage for the back end. It goes on. The job that young lady back there had, not you, but when I first came here, the lady that had it took a policeman with her because the city's car, she wasn't if she got in a confrontation with somebody, she wasn't confident that car would start and she could get away. So she took a policeman with her. That's the kind of equipment we have. Hopefully we don't have any. We had one that the Public Works Director drove down to Victory Park and the front end fell out from underneath of it. They spent $2,000 putting a new front end under it. The car wasn't worth $500. Why did we do that?
we had a truck down at, down to the river that the frame was broke on. Why did we keep that? A dump truck. Why did we keep that? So on and so forth. But you get back to the streets, we borrowed $12 million back when Gary Folio was mayor to fix streets. And we started in, and we had a list and we went through it. But then you get into that and you think, well, you know, when you do these streets, you probably ought to do them sidewalks too. Because you're going to take the utilities out of the street, put them over there. And really, that's a homeowner's responsibility for that sidewalk. But the city took that on. But that made that $12 million for roads shrink because we've done that. Done $250,000 for sidewalks on Main Street. We've done that. I don't know how many million it was for Grand Avenue, but that kind of grew and we got into a lawsuit over that. So we have done some streets, not enough. And we got,
Roger,
Like-
you said 12 million, and when was that?
when Gary Folio was mayor,
Yeah, I heard about it.
that's been 20 years ago. And then we done Grand Avenue and we done, I guess that's about it. But we done some sidewalks around Dunn Street. But I think you got a good handle on it, that we're keeping up with the vehicles and so on and so forth with the city, but we're not getting in with the roads because it's such a big ticket item. What is our bonding capability? There is a limit, you know, on our bonding. Are we anywhere near our limit on bonding? Not anywhere near it.
But again, if I go back to it, if we could bond $5 million a year and do.
You're going back to the,
65 streets.
yeah.
What I'm saying is because our property valuations are stagnant,
Yes.
it's going to raise it's going to raise the tax levy.
Well, that's fine. I mean,
And here's what I'm saying, is whatever council wants us to do, that's fine. It's just that
what,
our job as staff members is to present the big picture to you, that if you do this, this might happen.
I understand that, but it's the people that we are responsible to is the voting or the members, the citizens in our wards. We're responsible to them. And if they want to pay, then we should do it. And it's going to, and my taxes went up on that present house we've been there 10 years, and the taxes went up at least $700 a year from when we moved there. Do we want, and our town is shrinking. That's not good. If your town is growing, fine, then you got money. If it shrinks, then you got to pay more for what you got. And that's what we got to realize what we got to do. I think we're keeping up with keeping the maintenance of the city and the city products, but we're not keeping up the streets. They're getting ahead of us, and we've done some, but they're just getting way ahead of us.
Well, like you said, taxes have gone up, but street quality has not. So people are still paying more, receiving less. At this point, they're paying that much money of what the taxes would be on their vehicle maintenance.
Another problem, though, that we've ran into is 30 years ago, they went in and overlaid streets that never should have been overlaid. So they moved the problem to us today.
We done intersections on Orleans Street that had just been paved the year before. And then I go over that now and I go, you know, if we go back and tear out that asphalt and put it in concrete, now that street's got to match those concrete intersections, which is bad. We shouldn't have done it. We done the intersection at 4th and Bank, best one we ever had. We had to jackhammer it out when we put in the sewer and put in. And there's where we done some more streets. When they done the sewer, they also let us borrow money to do the street to cover, to cover that up.
Another-
Bank Street and down around there.
Our streets have been Band-Aid patched, whatever you want to call it. You can look at almost every street in town that's deteriorated to the point that it needs something dramatically done. Look at the curb. There is no curb. That's because they've overlaid and overlaid.
I've been trying to, I guess, fight or whatever for a sidewalk down Johnson Street Road so that people don't have to walk out in the street. I look out there and I see this young girl walking down the street pushing a baby stroller on Johnson Street Road. Been after that for 10 years. Thought we was going to have it, and then COVID's hit, and now we don't have the money to do that sidewalk.
Another thing that happened, we didn't seal coat for a lot of years either, and it kept getting worse and worse. And not to try to put you on the spot, but do you remember how many years that old sealer was down before we finally got the new sealer? 8, 10, 12 years?
Yeah, probably, I don't know that long. Our old estimate I ran into is, when we just talked about it for budget meeting before, we usually do a mile and a half, 2 miles of seal coating a year. This past year we did 3 miles, but we didn't have any, windstorms or high water, driftwood or mud. We was able to do about 3 miles, but there's approximately 124 miles of center line street in Kilgore that we try to maintain, and that's just the center line, that's not counting the parking lanes or anything else, so you can do the math. I mean, 3 miles in the last about 5 years, what do you say, say 4 or 5 years, depending on the traffic, so it's just, that's no problem with the roll tanks at our sanitation. I don't know how, before long, we have to replace those with the containment bed and everything else, and that's going to run into money. I mean, I don't know how to jump the labels down without, able to do something.
I know when I got on the council, the sealer truck wasn't running at all.
Yeah,
And when I
used truck from the state of Missouri.
when I checked on it, they said there was a grievance wrote because there was a safety issue on it. And it's going to cost so much money to get everything up and running like it had to be in order for us to be able to use it. So we did end up biting the bullet and buying the sealer truck. I don't think 18th Street, 10th Street got seal coated for the first 10 years as even in service. You can't do that with asphalt. It has to be done. So it ain't just this council. I mean, people got to realize we're trying to do it and we're going to have to do better. But this is 30 years that's getting thrown in our lap, and they didn't have the money then. We sure don't have the money now, but we'll get something figured out.
It's important.
The truck that John's talking about, it was a 2-man truck. And what happened, that big guy driving the truck, and there's also a guy in the back of the truck turning the oil on and off, and then he's inhaling the, fumes and oil and everything else. And it was just, I get what those, I mean, probably something.
Yeah.
The street department does an incredible job with the resources they are given.
Yes.
That's something else I want to bring up. We talk about that. Our street department has 7 employees. And them 7 employees have longevity in the city. Probably any given week during the summer, because most of these employees don't take time off during the winter because of snow removal. I'd say the average employee there, if you averaged out the 5 weeks and the 1 week, every employee there has 3 weeks of vacation, personal time, sick time, holidays, all that figured in there. You probably on average have 5 employees working at any given time in the street department. We really don't,
Two
Probably-
things, and I
probably
don't,
losing 26 weeks out of the year as far as having somebody off. And it does makes it harder for us to get everything done that we would really like to get done in that short window we have for summer, because winter seems,
they do.
and
yes,
not,
they do.
not only does our street department do the streets, we put up banners, we trim trees, we deliver cones for different events that are going on throughout the city. Snow or a windstorm comes, we pick up brush, we clean up leaves in the fall. I mean, so when people ask the question,
Yeah, in the summertime, springtime, I'll tell you, one guy in the street sweeper, like Rob said, 7 of us, one guy in the street sweeper, one guy from not doing this was like 1987, I was like, monkey mower where we're all the orange, and then the most ditches, stuff, I'll have a couple guys passing, a couple guys doing either alleys or 4 guys passing, you have to get out. It just doesn't take long to,
When you
First
do
of
the
all, I
street sweeper,
have
do you have
no-
to have a truck go along to dump what it picks up into a truck?
What's that again?
When you do the street sweeper, do you have to have a truck go along so you dump?
It's dropped off
what
and
it
then they
picks
keep
up?
leapfrogging it along.
into the
So
truck.
somebody doesn't sit there in that truck all day long, but yes, it takes, somebody has to go out. So that takes 2 employees because somebody has to drive that employee, move the truck, somebody has to come pick him up.
And I'm not saying not to do it. I wish we'd done more, but it does take people. It does take, because didn't they change it to where you just couldn't take that stuff and dump it? Now a lot of it has to go to the landfill.
Yes.
Okay, I have no problem with any of our departments in the city. I think the street department does a fantastic job. The snow removal, I think they've currently done better jobs than we've seen even in the past, and especially now with the new snowfall, they're out again. And, our fire department, police department, all of our department heads should be proud of the staff that they have. One comment that I have heard personally directed to me was, why are we buying a new street sweeper when the streets are in the condition that they're in? And that's a hard question to answer. Another one is, why are we buying a recycle packer, which is another garbage truck, when we just spent money on buying a new big garbage truck to pick up the garbage? So just a couple of, and I'm just passing this along to try and explain to the public why we are buying these items. I understand that the street sweeper is at the end of its lifespan, where it's still got trade-in value, correct? And the recycle packer is for to keep the garbage, the recycle from blowing out. And as we're using 2 trucks now, we could replace that with one. But it looks like we're buying another garbage truck. So that's 2 issues that have been brought to me that is on this list.
But if you want me to answer, you give your response, okay. So the street sweeper is used all year long to pick up debris that would normally, if it's not picked up, will end up in our wastewater collection system, which will end up at a wastewater treatment, and that causes issues. So no matter what the condition of the streets, we still have to pick up the loose debris and trash and you name it, all that stuff. If not picked up, will end up at waste treatment. So that's the reason for the street sweeper, no matter what the condition of the streets are.
Street sweeping is one of the things that's required by the DNR in order to remove material that would otherwise discharge into.
And I just think that this is good information. So maybe the public understands better why we're spending this money, or why we need a street sweeper to maintain the streets that we have. So
I'm not trying to disagree with any council person. I want to give you our side, the reason why that we're trying to justify why we need it. The council can tell us whatever you want to do, and we will follow with whatever your guidance is. Going to the Packer truck, the reason we have felt that the Packer truck would be a better option than the way we've done it in the past is to start with the one truck for an employee to get the recycling into the back of that truck. The one bed is 5 foot tall, the other bed is 6 foot tall. One injury, and we'll pay for that truck that we're asking for. When you ask why we have the new trucks and we're asking for another truck, the 2 trucks that we bought pick up waste, not recycling. So that's the difference in those 2. The Packer truck, we're looking and I fully believe that we can do this. We would go from 2 trucks to 1 truck. We would still use 2 employees so that they can pick it up in a timely manner and be able to do the whole day's route with 1 truck. Still the same amount of employees, but that's less fuel, that's less maintenance, that's less vehicle replacement. And so that was the reason for that. The biggest issue that we're looking at is the safety aspect. Somewhere we've dodged a bullet for a lot of years. At some point in time, you're going to have a shoulder injury or a back injury.
Can you tell me, because recycling's free in our community and we provide the containers, can you tell me the number of people that recycle per se, household, a percentage? Do you have any idea?
Probably 60% would be, the north side of town has a better success rate than the south side of town does.
And that recycling, that is a way you can lower a bill from the city, because we're charged $2.50 now a month,
Per
and only
household.
about a third of our people are using it. That was 150% raise. It was a dollar. But whatever you go there doesn't go across the scales. So we can pay the $2.50 a month, plus we can put all, whatever recycling we don't recycle goes in there, and we get charged by the ton on that.
Recycling is at no extra charge because there is a cost to the city from Great River Waste Authority. And we provide the service to every household as a result.
Robert, I heard here through the grapevine in the last week or so that Great River Regional Waste is talking about charging more for us to go to the transfer station because they're having to absorb more money. Have you heard anything on that? Does it look like we're gonna have to start taking, are we gonna have to pay more if we dump it here, or
Well,
maybe drive it all the way up to Fort Madison to do it?
I'm your representative, and I'm sorry I have not given reports on it. But it cost, speaking from their side, it cost Great River $250,000 a year to transport the stuff from the transfer station to Fort Madison. It's $43 a ton at Fort Madison. Then they have to add on or take away that $250,000 to get it transferred up there. There has been some talk about especially charging out-of-state contractors more. And they don't know how they would police that. So the simple way is just make everybody pay. Well, that has been talked about. It has not been done. I believe that the city of Keokuk should have and you can have a contractor rate, and the city of Keokuk should have a rate lower than that, because we're one of the partners when they started the dump up there, and that we shouldn't have to pay for out-of-state vendors coming in here. And we are the cheapest. Great River's the cheapest in the region. So, but there has been talk about trying to recover that $250,000 from the people that use this transfer station.
And it could possibly be a reality that we start hauling all the way to Fort Madison some point in time if the cost to the city could be reduced by hauling it up there.
So we're gonna need trucks that are reliable on the road. Something that ain't gonna be a pickup size, it's gonna be running back and forth 40 times versus 3 or 4 times. But
You don't,
that's just another cost to the city again.
Robert, would you have your own transfers, or you're not talking about the garbage trucks driving up there?
Yes.
Oh, they are? You couldn't transfer to, that's
Really,
Well, they're talking about, from what I understood, what I heard, they was talking about it'll be more expensive to dump here at our transfer station than if we drove up there. So then we would have to weigh out the cost of the fuel and the time. Is it cheaper to just haul it on up there?
My question was,
Yeah.
what was going to do with our garbage trucks?
yes.
This has been going on for years, and I'm not sure why, we have, like you said.
Turn your mic around, Pam.
contractors. We have out-of-state contractors, Cole Morgan's, Bradley's, for years. I mean, I asked this question probably 15 years ago to the regional waste. Why is the city of Keokuk being charged the same amount as somebody coming in from Illinois or somebody coming in from Missouri? I never did get an answer. I mean, I have the email still. I never did get an answer that was appropriate. I truly feel that, I believe we have people coming in from Quincy that's bringing their garbage to our transfer station, which has to be, I think that that's something that all of us needs to be more aggressive on finding out some answers regarding, I mean, I truly, I understand you're talking Lee County residents, but something has to be done with that. We should not be being charged the same amount as someone bringing in their trash from another
Well,
community.
the simple answer to that is, it's just easier to charge
It's-
everybody
sure
and
it's
not try,
easier, but
not
that's
try to
really
catch
not
the
fair
ones
to-
that are from out of
yeah.
state. But as Robert says, if you're a Keokuk citizen, you had a water bill. All right, now I'm water, but what makes you think that those contractors couldn't show you a water bill?
I
Yeah,
understand that, but
And,
I mean, Lee County residents
like-
are paying for that. We're
Yeah,
paying
like,
in our
I know,
taxes for that.
but like those contractors, they pick up, you see them over to Hamilton, down to Wayland, down to Wayland, you know, I'm sure they didn't drive down there with an empty truck. You know, so it's a mixed goal. But if you charge them so much for out-of-state stuff, maybe it would be.
Quite a bit more, actually, it should be. but
Well,
that's just
the
my
other thing
opinion.
too is if we tear down a building in city of Keokuk, we can't dump here, which I know they say that we get a break, but by the time it's hauled to Fort Madison, that cost is put off on the city of Keokuk for that demolition that we did. And it's not a cheap cost, and I'm sure it's not as much as a break that we get. And that's been happening for a long time too. Again, I say they do give us some sort of a break, but the cost that comes from the contractor tearing that building down is a lot more than the break we're getting,
That the
because they
only-
won't let us dump here.
The only break that we've ever actually received as far as cost is for asbestos. A lot of times, we're not charged the same amount. They will help us out on that at times.
About a third of the total tonnage that goes into Great River up there comes from this transfer station.
But
And
this is Lee County. It's Lee County Transfer Station. It's Lee County. It's not,
you know, and you talk about it's Keokuk's transfer station, it's not Keokuk's transfer station. But a third of what goes in that up at Fort Madison comes out of this transfer station. Henry County and Van Buren County also comes to Fort Madison. They haul their own. They don't have a transfer station. They have far less than what comes out of this transfer station, far less.
What's the size of like population of Van Buren County? I mean, isn't that quite a bit less than what Lee County is? And Keokuk is even that. I mean, what's the biggest community in Van Buren County? Do you know, or is there larger?
I don't know if the city itself, I don't know just how it,
I'm just saying, like, so we have, I can see where, you know, Keokuk or Lee County so much, we have such a larger population, so Henry County and Van Buren County probably have less.
yeah, they have, like I say, their waste that they haul in there is far less than what comes out of this transfer station. Keokuk municipality is the largest user of that, single user. But if you put all the contractors together, we would not. They would bring in more. Well, I think we pay somewhere between $70,000 and $80,000 a year. It's what we pay to put our trash in, the city's trash in the transfer station out here.
Well, I think we're chasing a rabbit right now. And I'd like to get back to the budget and see what we're going to do with this budget, because we can talk all night long on what might be on the coming up, and we have no answers for that. But the question at hand and what the meeting's about is, what are we going to do with this budget? And we're going to approve it, all things that are in here, or we're going to strike some out, or what are we going to do? That's my question.
So you're saying strike things out, and because I just want to make sure I'm getting it correct, because we're might be in the weeds a little bit. strike things out. You're suggesting either approving it or, well, we already approved it, I think, the last.
No, we have not approved it.
No.
Okay, got it. So then you're suggesting that we maybe keep as is, strike things out. Are you, in that strike things out, are you suggesting that we move things to streets, to fix streets? Because I know that's what was brought up, but are you,
Well-
that's not what we're talking about, right? I just want to be
No.
really clear on it.
No, I know we can't, if we strike things out, I know we can't use that money. for
Okay,
Streets.
just making sure.
I understand that.
Okay,
But what I'm talking about is, are we going to save money in these particular departments like the sewer or sanitation or whatever we're going to do, the road use tax fund for the sweeper or the recycle packer or the vac truck that are the big ticket items. The other things for the police and fire, most
We
of
need a
those things, I
plan for
think,
the roads.
it's-
I think we have the other departments up and pretty well maintained, but we need a plan for the streets. And it's a big ticket item, so we don't do it. And it's gonna raise taxes, but it's gotta be paid for and it's gotta be done, because with these streets, we could spend a lot of money and never catch up.
Cole, is there any way that we can figure out if we bonded for, say, the $5 million, like we were talking about? That's just a figure that we kind of pulled out of the air. Is there any way that we can project what that would do to taxes?
Along with that, then I would want to see what Roger was saying, a plan, so that we would know exactly what we would be achieving with that money. And, we've talked about 3-4 years from now doing the $1 million bond when that comes off the books. So essentially just renewing that so that it doesn't have a change on the levies. So maybe this exercise could be where at a future time, because that's nothing for this current budget at this point, but at a future time, we could take a look at the difference between a 1 million, a 5, maybe even a 7 or a 10 to see what would that accomplish, what would that cost, and then use that information to make a decision moving forward.
It would just be an estimation because depending on what street we was going to tackle as to what the cost would be.
Sure, but we need all that in a plan
Yeah.
so that we can make the decision.
Yeah, the first plan we probably ought to come up with was what streets do we want to do?
Mm-hmm.
So then we could get maybe a budgeted number for the area that we're talking about. And then that would dictate kind of how much money we needed to look at.
I chuckled there, Robert. I didn't mean to, but I used to say, if you want to know what street to do, get a map of Kicker, get a dart out and throw it. Whatever it hits, go do it because it needs fixed. One thing I think we should look at is how many bonds we have, when they're going to come due. I think we've been redoing them for a lower rate, but that extends it out. And when we change that lower rate, there's some people get a little bit of money for doing that. I mean, we might save money, but there's other people out there making money on that too. So we need to know when one's going to drop off, how much we can come on. The citizens got to know, we got to explain to them that road use taxes and garbage fees and so on and so forth, explain to them and then come up with some kind of figure how much my taxes are going to go up.
That's why we're suggesting the $1 million every 3 years. Because based upon our debt schedule, the first big bond that gets paid off is, I think, in 2027, right? Then that's when we can look at doing something else. So staff is already doing that. The second thing is when we refinance, we're not refinancing for longer than what the original bond was. Because if we're calling the bond in with 7 years left, that's what we're refinancing it for.
Then that $12 million we borrowed years ago, that bond's been paid for.
If it was 20 years ago, yes.
Just for an example, 18th Street, we put a budget number together, and with the price of oil and everything changing, I don't think this number would be truly accurate, but it'd be somewhat, and give you an idea. To do 18th Street from Main Street to the cemetery, we're probably looking at about $750,000.
And what method of repair?
That would be a mill and fill. That would be
Would
milling out the surface.
Would that be like 13th Street?
It'd be like 13th Street, yes.
That would be what we done to 13th Street.
Yes. The mill and fill, yes. That's going into milling the street down. And anytime you do a street project, you have to do the intersections, the sidewalk has to be brought to ADA compliance, so that would also include that. That's no curb and gutter. That does not take into account that you, when they start doing the milling of the road, you might have a spot that's soft or not desirable to put the asphalt back on, and that would have to be taken care of also.
The citizens need something tangible like that, though.
What's
They
that?
need, the citizens need something tangible, something they can see, something that is actually not, we're in the works, we're talking, we're thinking. They need something that they can drive on and see that we're making progress.
Councilmember, I don't disagree with you. What staff is trying to do is we're trying to do it in such a way that it has minimal impact on the finances of our residents. And unfortunately, because of different things, we aren't able to just proceed right this moment. But given the question on what we can do as far as borrowing money, I'll bring that forward. Right? Yeah, and here's what it is it won't change anything in this budget. Whatever, when I get that, I can have it at the next meeting, but it won't change anything in this budget because we won't be able to add it at this point. Okay? It's something that we can add it during the budget year, but we can't add it to this document at this time.
Yeah, so with this budget, what's on this sheet here, are we going to be back sitting talking about whose jobs we're going to cut in 6 months?
No, because the what's on this sheet is not being paid out of operational funds.
I understand that. I'm just saying that needs to be abundantly clear.
I have a question. Let's say that we didn't buy the truck for $450,000. Where the money that we would have spent on that, where does it go back to? Does it stay in the sewer department? So that would be this,
So you're talking about the vac truck, right? That money is out of the sewer fees. So if we don't spend the money, it just stays in the sewer fund.
okay,
Right. The only thing that the sewer fund does, and a lot of communities do this, is that their utility funds make a contribution to the general fund for a payment in lieu of taxes. So the sewer fund does transfer over $250,000 to the general fund to support the general fund.
so if we didn't buy that, we could potentially move $250,000 to the general fund.
We already do that on an annual basis.
Okay.
So if we don't buy that truck, all it does is it adds to the bottom line of the sewer department.
Okay. So then that extra money could carry over to next year.
Yes, that money would carry over to the next year.
Okay. I think we are all in agreement that we're being really scrutinized right now on the money that we're spending after what happened last year. So we're being extra cautious on the things that we need versus the things that we want. So I don't think that we should get all of these things. I can't sit here, we need to ask each other, do you feel comfortable buying all of these things? And if you're not certain about one of them, then we don't buy it. And it all comes back to, do we have the money to buy this? If the answer is no, and your solution is borrowing more money because you think you want it, that's not a reason to get it. So I don't think that everything on here are things that we need to get. Now, if we want to cut a thing out and all agree on one thing and then, hey, we'll do this other one later, then maybe that's what we need to do. But I can't sit here and say, looking at this, that I'm going to justify and buy all three of these things.
Before we cut
Mhm.
something out, I would ask if it's in my departments that we discuss it. I would like to give an explanation to the council as to what I feel the effects would be by not purchasing that piece of equipment, so that a year down the road, 6 months, 18 months, or 3 years, if there's an issue, that everybody understands that this is why we're asking for it, and this could be.
And I think it all just comes down to bad timing after everything that happened with the budget last year. And now we're being presented with these items and being asked to spend the extra money. It looks bad, to be honest. We're asking, or we're being asked to spend the extra money to do these things. But like Rosalind has been trying to express, we're not showing any progress to anybody that lives in town. So that's just what I'm trying to get at. And I don't think that I can comfortably say we have the money to buy all of this.
I would like to give my opinion on this.
Thank you.
I don't feel like we're spending on any extra things or any extra money. We make purchases like this every single year. In support of our department heads, they have already scrutinized their requests tremendously compared to previous years. So I would say, based on what the department's heads have brought to us, that I am in favor of everything on this list because it has been vetted multiple times to even get to this point. So I don't think that there's anything on here that is much more of a want as opposed to a need at this point. Now, I know that can be debated with the lifespan, as Steve has brought up, but at some point, someone has decided we need to take care of this now. Otherwise, we will find ourselves in a bad situation later. And then I guess the other question I have, clarifying with Cole, are we borrowing for any items on this list, or have we already borrowed and this is fulfilling a previous borrow, so we're not doing any additional borrowing for what we're looking at right now?
The only item that we are borrowing for in the upcoming year is the belt press at the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay.
The money, where you see on here where it says bond reserves in the general fund, that is money we've already borrowed. Okay. And trust me, this is not something I want to do every year, to borrow for general fund capital purchases. I want to be able to pay as you go. So one of the things is, as soon as we're done with the operational budget, I'll be meeting with the department heads to work out the capital project, or CIP, the capital improvement plan, and how we're going to go forward to pay for things in the general fund without taking away from operations. Okay. Secondly, I want to point out two things. One, the Packer truck is still in the budget, but the sanitation budget would be in the red if we made the purchase. So the only reason why I left it in is that if during the year we can figure out another way for paying for it that allows the sanitation department to not be in the red, or things turn out to be better than what we thought and we can purchase it outright, then we will do it. But otherwise, we're not purchasing that Packer truck unless one of those things happen. But I'm leaving it in the budget because in case we can figure it out, we will do it. The second thing is and each of these large items, because of their expense, the council has to approve the purchase before any one of us can make the actual purchase at the time, right? Just because you approve it next week as part of the budget doesn't mean it gets spent, because we as staff still have to come back by our purchase policy, request the permission from the city council to make that purchase. And if at that time you don't feel we should make that purchase, you can tell us no. But by having it in the budget, we have the option to be able to do that without having to amend the budget at a later date.
I respect the department heads and what they brought forward. I'm more of an all or nothing. So we're either, in my opinion, would be we're going forward. I'm not picking which department gets what they've put forward. So it's either nothing or all of it. I just want to know, again, that's where we're not going to hear that operations have outstripped our revenues.
What I will
That's
tell
it.
you right now is that the general fund has a surplus balance, a projected surplus balance for the end of fiscal year 23. Okay.
And continuing for a little while, based on the projections.
And it's supposed to continue for at least the next 4 years after that.
I've got some comparisons here on the vac trucks. If anybody'd like to look at it, the difference in the vac truck and all the rest of the items I think that's on the Public Works departments is the vac truck. If it is approved in the budget, we will probably be coming to the council in the next 2 weeks to ask for the money to purchase this because it is time sensitive. We're either going to do it by the end of April, we'll either made the decision to buy it or not to buy it. Otherwise, the chassis won't be there and the dollar amount will go up and we will be put off a lot longer. But I'd like to pass these out. You guys look at it, whichever way you want to go, we'll go with. But this is a comparison on the two trucks.
Robert, I have a question for you. If we buy or for Cole, either one, if we buy the Packer truck, is that replacing a different truck? Are we selling one or is that?
No,
adding to it?
what it's doing is right now the recycling is picked up with 2 flatbed trucks.
Right.
And each of those trucks, one is, the bed is 5 foot high and the other one's
Right.
6 foot high. So what it does is we would transfer one of those flatbeds to another department.
Okay.
And are we trading in one of those flatbeds or what are we doing with the other one? One's going to another department and one is. Right. Correct.
And utilize it for something else.
Cole, I'm glad to hear what staff is working on and so on. And that's one of the reasons why I think we need more workshops is because I would like to have more of that conversation about what staff is doing so that we can, when we do comes to make a decision, we have a more informed decision, information on making that decision.
I have had comments from other council members that why don't we just have our workshops on the second and fourth Thursdays of every month? So every Thursday we'd have a meeting. First and third, a regular council meeting, second and fourth, a workshop.
I think that's right, and we should do that. That's what we do, but we have in the past done away with a lot of workshops on the second, third, or first, third, whatever, our regular meetings.
Staff will do whatever the council wants. I've already figured out that next year we're gonna have a discussion. Next December, we're gonna have a discussion on how you want to handle the budget sessions. So if it's up to council.
Well, I think,
If you say workshops on the second and third Thursdays, we will be here on the second and third Thursdays.
well, I think we
Second and fourth.
should have something to discuss and we should have something to explain. I mean, there's things going on around this city every day. And and we should be informed about what's going on, what the plans are, where we're at.
We used to have them on the second and fourth, and then it kind of got to where there wasn't much being discussed, if I remember right, Roger. I don't remember. I mean, I know a couple people said something about.
You're right. There wasn't much discussed, but there should have been stuff discussed.
Absolutely right. I agree.
My personal opinion would be I'd like to see us fully utilize the first and third workshops before we look at altering the schedule to second and fourths. For example, last week, our workshop was 25, 30 minutes long. So we had 30 minutes that we could have potentially scheduled in. However, the other side of that argument is we have the definite cutoff point because we have to start the meeting, so it can interrupt conversations as well. So,
And staff tries to put no more than 2 items on any workshop agenda because it's only an hour. And we measure, and last week I thought that the conversation would go longer than 20, 30 minutes. Okay. So it's a part of staff trying to figure out how long we think everyone would want to discuss it. and how much time we think we can give it. There's been other times where I've put 3 or 4 items on there and we don't get past the second one because we talked too long.
And when I'm talking about this, Cole, I'm as guilty as anybody because I'm, as being representative to Great River Regional Waste, I should be given a report at the council meeting or at the workshop.
So I think where we're at right now, just me, that we have to decide whether we're going to move along with the budget the way it is, with the large line items being voted on during the fiscal year, as we can see how much money we do or don't have, or where we're at with our budget at that time. Am I right? Or are we going to just say we don't want to approve the budget? We need to make a decision which way we're thinking, unless somebody's got something real new to say. I think we kind of have hit a stalemate a little bit. What is everybody thinking?
I'm glad that Cole explained that when we come to these items, that they come before the council again to say, okay, here's where we're at. We've got the money, like, for instance, in the sanitation fees for the recycle packer. If it's not there, we don't buy it, at that time. And I like the fact that we're going to get a chance to approve them at that time when we purchase that particular item, because I didn't realize that before.
I would agree because I also didn't know that, and I feel like this whole meeting we could have just skipped. Like if we knew that we were going to be asked at a later date before buying the actual thing, to be honest. So I thought that we were approving buying all of this right now. So
Well,
knowing that we're doing it later, we could have just skipped this.
Well, I do believe that the meeting was productive, though, in that I think that several council members wanted some information out in front of the public as to how the finances actually worked. So,
I'm fine.
I am tickled to death to be sitting on the council with all you guys. I think the council we have now is very diversified. I think the council we have right now has their head and heart in the right position. It's by far different than, not to put any other council down, by far different than what it's been in years past, and I'm talking a lot of years past. And that was one reason why I got on the council. And I commend every one of you for your input, for your way of thinking. You've helped me see things from a different perspective. I think that's what we're all here for, and represent the citizens of Keokuk.
I'm fine with it moving forward. I would like, just for a future, if we could bring back that policy at some point. I don't know if it's an ordinance or a policy. I'd like to change that limit. I want to say it's $15,000 for council approval. I think it should be lower until we're definitely on solid ground.
Is that an annual policy that gets renewed? Spending policy?
the purchase policy, it isn't necessarily annual. I think the last time was 2 years ago. But we can certainly revisit it.
Cole, you were talking about the approval of the general fund budget. What comes out of that? That's something that we're going to be looking at in the next couple of council meetings coming up. Is that?
Well, I think what you're referencing is the capital plan.
Yes.
Okay, so what it is once we're done with this budget, normally I start the CIP in September, but because of how we need to figure out how to finance purchases out of the general fund, I'm starting it next month, so that come November or October, November, when we should be approving the CIP, we have it figured out.
So if whoops, whoa, that was loud. Can you hear me now? So on our demolitions, what does the council want to see if we actually do so when we do a demo, we get bids, try to get them, we hope to at least get them from 3 people, from 3 different contractors, but generally they're under the 15,000, depending on if there's asbestos or that type of stuff. So do you want those to come to you regardless, as far as, or just for information purposes? You want us to ask permission to do those?
I'd love to just know about them so that people know that there are, the nuisances are coming down. But I just think altogether that purchase policy, it's one of the highest I've ever seen with any sort of contractor company, that's a large number to not need permission for.
Okay.
But that's just me.
I'm okay with that. We just really have never, if they're really high, generally, 25,000 or over, it generally does come to the council as a resolution, but normally we just,
Is the purchase policy more for things or more for services or both?
It's more for things and contracts rather than services. But in most instances, when we have a service contract, because it's a contract, we normally have to have that depending upon what it's for and the amount.
Any other questions, anybody? So if there's nothing else to discuss, are we ready to go home? Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Second.
Third, fourth.